Just from this alone, that warthog is as good as dead. Follow the blood trail, and you'll easily track down the wounded animal. Jeff dragged the warthog to camp and showed it to Matt, unaware that when he turned away, Matt's expression clouded.
And there's times where you get lucky. I'd rather be skillful than lucky.
Jeff's warthog didn't just stir up envy among the other contestants. 连节目组都端着枪跑来敲打他，最好有命把油猪吃完。
Understood. Thank you, sir.
Instead of getting angry, Jeff sat in the shelter with his female teammate, eating roast pork, because then he'd smacked all 12 survival experts. A day ago, nobody thought Jeff, hanging by a thread, could pull off this comeback. Teams completing the primitive living task and boiling water earned 200 points, while those that failed got only 50 points, faced elimination, and walked away with nothing but a fire starter for the next phase. The high-scoring teams, by contrast, got to pick hunting bows and even saws. At a glance, low-scoring teams looked doomed, but the rules left them a chance to claw back. In the upcoming second stage challenge, they need to build a simple bridge over a crocodile-infested river and into a hunting ground beyond. If they can just finish that bridge, they'll snag an extra 100 points. It's basically their one shot to close the gap, even with such a massive gear disadvantage. Real survivors don't whine about conditions. The bow-armed teams are already eyeing meat. There are deer grazing just ahead. A river cuts between them and the deer to reach hunting grounds beyond. They have to build a bridge. Danny's team currently has only 50 points, and they urgently need to build a bridge and grab that 100 points to keep their team from being eliminated. Danny and Rachel go to the stream to scout. Building a bridge over a 2-meter-wide creek isn't hard. A saw would make this much easier, sure, but at this point it's either build a bridge or pack it in. Off to the west, a line of rhino tracks grabs their attention. They're most likely from the same rhino that passed near their shelter last night. If this is the rhino's usual watering hole, the danger they'll face over time will be much higher. Rhinos may not be carnivores, but with their massive size and nasty temper, when spooked, their havoc can surpass any predators. Jeff's team is stuck at 50 points, and they need the 100-point reward to get hunting gear. But just as they're about to head out and build the bridge, all the teams receive a new task for production.
Today you will build a torch with wicks.
Whoa.
Oh my
gosh.
For the 50-point teams, this new task is like a bolt from the blue. So today they've got to not only build a bridge, but also make a torch. The two tasks are worth 50 and 100 points. So low-scoring teams must go all out. The back-to-back challenges leave Jeff with no time to catch his breath. He has to get moving immediately. On the west side, Jeff finds a thick log. With a bridge worth 100 points, it's clearly their main focus now. Jeff lays the log across the creek. It's just the right length, and they plan to add 3 more logs on top of it, turning it into a ladder-style footbridge. By this point, Jeff hasn't eaten in 2 days. The bridge is underway, and he feels his strength fading. Kelly and Alyssa go for the bridge first. They're sitting on 200 points, but out here in the African wild, points won't keep them alive. Only with enough food can they make it to day 40. They cut down a slender log that only just reaches the far bank, but being so thin, it wobbled badly, so they clearly had to add more logs to make it stable. Matt's team also decided to prioritize the bridge task. At the moment, they were neck and neck for first, and the saw they'd earned was key to this challenge. They easily cut through a log, but the branches at the top were jammed tight, and they had to cut them from above before they could pull the log free. Gabby quickly shed his fur and scrambled up the tree, while Matt gripped the log to give him a solid foothold. Gabby used all his strength just to scramble up to the fork in the tree. Balanced on the trunk, he sawed off the extra branches overhead. With Gabby's agile help and coordination, Matt finally hauled the log down. They prove how important teamwork is among the 7 teams. 4 chose to build a bridge for the 100 points, while the remaining 3 chose to make a simple torch to complete today's task. The Mexican team, Pablo and Fernanda, searched nearby for torch materials. They planned to cut an 8-foot-long handle and then wrap a thick enough wick around it, so the torch would burn for a long time. Fernanda had made torches before, so he was very confident about this challenge. Frank and Teal were also making a torch. They split the handle into 4 prongs and used hemp rope as the fuel. If they coated it with resin or charcoal, it would burn even longer. Seeing how seriously Teal was working on the torch, Frank didn't dare disturb him. The two teamed up before, and Frank watched Teal suddenly flip into a menopausal funk, lashing out without reason and then icing people out. But now it was a team challenge. If Teal had another episode like that, they'd be doomed for sure. Frank quickly found an excuse to head out. He wanted to gather some dry branches to use as fuel for the torch. Jeff was slogging at the bridge, and Kayla was gone. He had done the challenge by himself. Over on Matt's side, they had cut down a thick log. That log would be the main support. He crammed a bunch of branches into the middle of the bridge. As supports and a bridge began to take shape, Kelly and Alyssa worked hand in glove, pushing the bridge project forward. Alyssa was sure they'd win, but when she returned to camp carrying materials, Teal blew up for no clear reason. It started when he and Frank clashed over torch fuel. One wanted dry grass to light quickly. The other wanted hemp rope for a steady burn. The torch wasn't lit yet, but the team was already on edge. Frank had been out 40 minutes and returned with a small bundle of dry grass. Teal snapped he was wasting time. Frank wasn't about to just take that. The two bickered over what to use to light the torch, and before the torch even saw a spark, the air between them had already turned ice cold. The teams one after another entered the final stretch. The Australian pair wrapped up the bridge first, Kelly calling and Alyssa doing the heavy lifting. They lacked the guys' brute strength, but their teamwork was flawless. Meanwhile, Danny and Rachel finally got their bridge done too. Those 100 points were vital for them, because once they locked in this task, they could climb back above the red line and regain the right to choose a bow or fishing gear. Matt and Gabi's team kept pace too. Their bridge wasn't much to look at, but as long as it carries them over, it does the job. Meanwhile, the Brazilian duo, Line and Marina, wrap up their torch first. Dry grass with twigs. The flame holds up nicely, so they're basically set for the next torch challenge. Frank's team finally relaxes a bit when Teal takes the lead in backing down, agreeing to test Frank's dry grass idea. The torch is slapdash, but it still earns them 50 points. Whether it will actually help them clear tomorrow's torch challenge is another question. Pablo's team also makes progress, crafting a basket-style torch. They're so confident in their design that they don't even bother using up wick material to test it. Among the 7 teams, only Jeff's team, still at 50 points with dusk a few hours away. Jeff has done the bridge work on his own, and only reinforcement remains. But he has to drop it and spend the remaining time on the torch task. Kayla has spent the whole day in the shelter and only gathered 2 bundles of dry grass. Grumbling she hates the situation but refuses to lift a finger. And she's fine lazing in the shelter as a vase. As Matt and Gabby work on the torch, Jeff walks by. Matt greets him but becomes guarded inside. In his view, Jeff showing up now is not just passing by, but peeking at their torch design. Jeff says he's out gathering materials and adds his team is splitting the work. Kayla is making the torch while he builds the bridge. But in Matt's eyes, this isn't efficiency. It's a lack of unity. Matt believes this is a team challenge and they should face problems side by side. Their chat looks calm on top, but underneath it's undercurrents. Matt sees Jeff as sly, while Jeff just thinks Matt's a show-off. When longtime rivals face off, the tension is explosive. It's obvious that Matt really does hold a lot of hostility toward Jeff. Jeff says nothing, doesn't whine. He just heads back to the river and keeps swinging the axe. Instead of talking back, Jeff acts and completes his counterattack. As soon as the bridge is done, the Texas team locks in 100-point boost. Those 100 points are vital, because until now, Jeff and Kayla have been stuck right on the red line, on the verge of being cut. Now they've dragged themselves from the brink. Jeff lets out a yell. In that instant, he hasn't just built a bridge. He's dragged the Texas team back from the brink. But they still can't stop, because the bridge is step 1. Next, they have to finish their torches. Without torches, they might not even qualify to compete in tomorrow's challenge. The moment Jeff wraps up the bridge, he bolts back to camp to crank on torches with Kayla. By now, the sky is fading fast, and there's barely any time left to test and tweak. Meanwhile, the Australian women are hustling too. Kelly and Alyssa might lack brute strength, but their ideas are quick and sharp. They shape their torch like an upside-down tent, packing dry grass, jute, and cotton inside, then bundling and tying with other materials outside. This way, the fire doesn't flare up and die out at once, but can stay lit far longer. They know tomorrow's test isn't about who sparks up first, but whose torch can last to the end. Matt and Gabby run a strong team setup. Clean split in roles. One builds the frame, the other packs in the fuel. Their torch isn't flashy, but it's solid, tight, and stable. Matt's team is dangerous because they're not always the fastest, but they almost never slip on the basics. Over in the Pacific, Danny and Rachel return to their issues. Danny overthinks. Rachel pitches, and he instantly tries to fix it. Each time he fixes it, the plan gets messy, and Rachel's patience wears thin because she feels like Danny keeps steamrolling her ideas. They're a strong team, but their problems are as clear. Danny insists on perfection, but in a competition, over-engineering can actually waste time. The Brazilian duo is a whole different story. Renee and Marina barely complain. They find some bugs and just treat them as low-grade protein. To them, if it fuels them, bugs are basically Brazilian barbecue. Jungle player style, zero fuss, zero pickiness. They eat whatever they can get. When night falls, the real African wilderness wakes up again. Hyenas' calls creep closer, and roars echo in the dark. Some teams hardly sleep. By day, they're chasing points, but at night they realize this wasteland doesn't care what place you're in. Whether you're leading the pack or dead last. If your fence is weak, you're just dinner waiting for whatever prowls out there in the dark. At first light, the teams gather again, torches and flags in hand, and a new challenge officially begins. This time, the show is putting their torches from yesterday to the test. The rules are brutal. Each team must light a torch, then use that flame to burn a rope and knock down the package from the tree. Only the first 5 teams to finish can move on to phase 2. 6th and 7th get no extra points at all. 听到消息，所有人脸色都变了，因为这不再是普通任务。It's a real elimination gate. Whether the torch can light, how long it holds a flame, and how fierce that fire burns could be what keeps their score alive. As the challenge starts, Brazil takes the lead. Rene lights his torch quickly, and he charges forward with the torch held high, cranking the pressure on everyone else. Other teams fuss with their torches, but when they spot Brazil tearing off, they freak out. Rachel is jolted by Rene's sudden burst, like he lit a fire under everyone. Matt and Gabby chase close behind, their torch burning steadily. It's not the most dramatic, but still gets a job done. The Australian women are right behind them. Their torch design pays off. The flame holds. The frame holds together instead of shaking apart as they sprint. But the real shock is Jeff. Earlier, Matt thought Jeff's torch looked like a cartoon prop. Over the top, not like anything that could really win. But once the real contest starts, Jeff's torch roars to life. Big flames, high heat, strong impact. The thing everyone laughed at becomes the key to Texas's comeback. That's the thing about Jeff. His builds rarely look pretty, but as long as it works, he doesn't care what anyone thinks. Soon, the front runners burn through their ropes and snag their packages. Inside the packages are the materials for phase 2. Next, they have to build a hanging trap. The goal of this trap is to simulate catching a cane tree. It sounds small, but the cane tree is huge with lots of meat. With a lot of meat on it. So, the production set up this challenge to test whether the contestants can build a truly effective hunting mechanism. The rules are clear. They must use rope to suspend heavy stone, then rig a trigger. Once the prey noses the bait and trips it, the stone drops and smashes the gore below. That's a successful run. It sounds simple, but once they start building, they realize it's anything but easy. The rock has to hit hard, the rope has to take the weight, the trigger has to be hair fine, and the stakes have to be hammered deep. If any part fails, the entire trap fails. As phase 2 kicks off, the teams fan out and dive into building their traps. Matt and Gabby start smoothly. They move fast and communicate well, and they quickly put the main structure together. Matt is very confident in his design, convinced this trap is tough to top. But the harshness of competition is, when you feel ahead, someone else is closing in. The Australian women keep working in sync. They may not match the men's raw power. Their strength, clear communication, one adjusts the angles, one watches the stress points, and they take steps carefully. In a delicate setup, raw strength won't put you ahead. Brains and teamwork matter even more. Over on the Pacific team, Danny and Rachel slide back into chaos, opting for a 7-stake trap design. But the stakes are trouble. They pound it in, then the angle's off. After setting it, they realize the direction of force is off. Worse yet, as Danny eyes the wood and tweaks the setup, sharp pain starts shooting through his back. Danny's an overstriver, as his body screams in protest. He refuses to stop. Rachel wants to be more involved in the decision-making, but Danny charges ahead on his own. As they crowd more, communication gets messy, and their efficiency keeps sliding. Team Texas isn't smooth. Jeff and Kayla reach phase 2 thanks to that torch. But once they start building the trap, their old problems resurface. They don't lack skills. Their communication snags. Jeff has ideas, and Kayla has her judgment, but they're always slightly out of sync, and in a high-pressure contest, that lag can turn into a 10-point swing or a life-or-death split, as Matt, the Australians, the Pacific team, and Texas still tweak. The most unexpected team suddenly surges ahead. The U.S. South team, Frank and Teal, hadn't stood out earlier and had even fallen behind. Yet in the trap challenge, they deliver the most solid run of the entire round. Frank doesn't rush. Teal stays calm. They're not Jeff and Kayla pulling against each other, and they're not like Danny and Rachel, stuck over engineering. They just go step by step, set the frame, tighten the rope, test the trigger. Stage by stage, they just keep grinding. By the second night, it's obvious. Frank's not quick. His edge is being unshakable. No panic, no flailing, no drama. In this mechanism challenge, brains beat speed. The U.S. South team triggers its device first, dropping the stone and shattering the gourd, snatching first for the whole round. A result even they hadn't seen coming. A team that had been losing head-to-head battles suddenly rides a trap challenge, straight to 100 points. This is what makes the competition thrilling. A powerhouse won't stay on top forever, and an underdog won't stay at the bottom if they grab an opening. The rankings can change instantly. Matt and Gabby finish their trap soon after. They don't take first, but they still lock in a solid high score. For Matt, it's a bit of a sting. He's used to standing at the very front, but he has to admit, the US South team played this round beautifully. Australian women's duo wrap up fast, proving strength isn't everything. In this global survival war, the women's teams fully deserve their place at the front. Next, only the Pacific team and the Texas team are left on the field, and the atmosphere starts to tighten. Because the next team to finish can still earn 30 points, while the last one will only get 20. 10 points may seem small, but near the red line, they decide who survives and who goes home. Danny and Rachel are fine-tuning their trap. Rachel's heart beating faster because she knows there's barely any time left to tweak it further. On the other side, Jeff and Kayla are also close to done, just one final step away. Both teams are racing side by side. Whoever fires first snags 10 extra points. Pacific edges ahead. Stone falls, gourd explodes, and Danny and Rachel exhale. All the arguments, chaos, and exhaustion from before pour out in that instant. They hug and celebrate because even though it was messy, the result at least kept them in the game. The Texas team ends up in 5th place, with Jeff and Kayla taking 20 points. Kayla is unhappy because he feels they could have done better, especially in the torch phase. Texas had a strong start, but in the trap phase, their flow broke down again. He sees now that Texas's real issue isn't ability. Their issue is how they talk. Jeff's tough, Kayla's tough, and when two strong-willed people get together, if they're not rowing the same way, they'll just grind each other down. This time, Jeff lets the fight go. He comforts Kayla, saying you did a good job. This shows that while Jeff is brash, he's not actually clueless about being a teammate. It's just that the way he shows it has always been very Jeff. After the challenge, the leaderboard is announced. US East still holds the lead. Australia is close behind, and US South uses this round's win to jump ahead and secure a safe spot. Texas, though only 5th, has climbed above the red line, which to Jeff already feels like a successful escape. The most endangered teams now are Brazil and Mexico. They failed to reach phase 2 and earn no extra points. Their scores are still at the bottom, so in the next elimination challenge, they're almost guaranteed to be the 2 teams on the chopping block. Next, everyone picks new supplies based on their points. Top scorers get first dibs. Some pick animal hides, some pick fishing gear, some pick bows and arrows. Hides mean better shelter and warmth. Fishing gear means a steady food source. Bows and arrows give them a chance to attack. Now, the points gap is turning into a survival gap. It's not about craving meat and having it. It's about having the tools to bring it down. It's not about sleeping well. It's about having hides and shelter materials. Top teams now hold more than points. They've grabbed control of the days ahead. Pacific team chooses bows and fishing gear. Danny and Rachel now can get food. But that's exactly when their troubles begin. After the challenge, Danny's back pain gets worse. At first, he just says he feels a bit off, but the pain soon becomes obvious. Rachel sees it right away. Danny keeps pushing through because that's who he is. He won't stop. And he won't admit he's already at his limit. But out here, stubbornness can't fool your body. The medics step in to examine him. The back pain may be a muscle strain, or it could be dehydration and kidney trouble, even something worse. For the Pacific team, this is a huge red flag because Danny is the workhorse of the pair. His stamina, mobility, and execution carry too many tasks. If he goes down, Rachel will have almost no way to handle the challenge alone. Rachel is worried too. He knows Danny will do anything to win. But if Danny keeps pushing the injury and it worsens, they might not lose to another team. They may lose to his body. This global survival war has just begun, yet every team is showing cracks as the competition steps into real hunting phase. At first, they were scrambling for fire, bridges, traps, and points. But by now, they all understand that the only thing that can truly change their fate is food. With a high score, without meat, it's empty numbers, nothing to fuel you. The next challenge hasn't even begun, and bodies are already close to collapse. Jeff may have just scraped past the red line last round, but that's not enough. He refuses to keep scraping on the brink of elimination, and he's done living one step from collapse each round. At dawn on day 5, Jeff pushes into a new hunting zone with his bow. He reads the wind walking, searching for a stir in the bushes. An ear, a tail, a hoof print, a shiver in the grass. Any tiny anomaly could mean a real dinner. On the other side, Danny's condition is getting worse. The back injury from the last challenge hasn't improved with rest. He says he can push through, but his body is protesting. Rachel can see it plain. What Danny needs now isn't more bravado, but to recover. The problem is, they've been hungry too long. Without food, the body has no resources to repair an injury. So all the pressure suddenly falls on Rachel. You have to rest, and Rachel has to head out alone to hunt. For the first time, the Pacific team is really in a solo carry. Meanwhile, the The Australian women's team starts their hunt. Kelly surveys land, tracing paths to watering spots in a river region, grasslands, and traces of wildlife. Opportunities are everywhere, but in Africa, hunting opportunities are never handed to you. A shift in the wind, and the animals are on alert. Too much distance, and a shot goes off. Hesitate for half a second, and the prey slips into the brush. Kelly finally sights a target, but a misjudgment of distance and wind sent her shot off the mark. That missed arrow is more than a failure. It's a warning from the wild to everyone out here. This isn't a practice field. Here, prey never waits for you. Meanwhile, U.S. South team is back in remedial class, surging up the leaderboard, but their bridge is half done. Frank and Till go to the river, geared up to finish the bridge into the hunting grounds at last. For them, this is huge. Once it's done, they don't just lock in 100 points, they also open a better hunting ground. Yet their teamwork still carries that same familiar awkwardness. Frank moves fast, while Bill needs clearer instructions. One barks go, and the other can't tell if that means haul it, toss it, or drop it. They almost start arguing again, but this time they don't let their tempers take over, because they both know this isn't the time to argue over who's more right. Finishing the bridge is all that counts. This team is a strange mix. They don't have Matt's easy chemistry, and they're not as razor sharp as Jeff. They're a step behind, a little off rhythm, but when it counts, they still muscle the job done. Matt and Gabby, though, still hold the top spot on the leaderboard. They've secured resources, bows, fishing gear, hides to spine meat. Every item can be turned into a survival edge. But being in front comes with pressure. Everyone else just has to chase. They're stuck guarding first. Matt knows well that if he wants to dominate the competition, points alone won't be enough. They need meat, a kill clean enough to silence everyone. But Matt's first shot doesn't land either. He takes aim at a 0-0, and a misjudged distance makes the arrow miss. Even a strong slip up, even legends get smacked down by the wild. What makes Matt scary isn't that every shot lands. It's that when he misses, he bounces back almost instantly. Meanwhile, Brazil hooks some hope on the lines. They've been stuck near the red line for so long. Low on points, low on supplies, under pressure. The moment the fish comes out of the water, they're shaking with excitement. A fish isn't just fish, it's fuel and confidence. A reason to keep pushing. Team Pacific isn't as lucky. Rachel heads out to set the line by herself, and at last feels a solid tug on it. It's not a snag or the current. It's something alive, fighting back. She throws everything into dragging it in, but right before she wins, the line snaps. A fish that could have changed everything slips free just beyond her grasp. Rachel falls apart, not for lack of trying, but because she failed with victory in reach. Out here, the harshest thing isn't having no hope, but having it in your hands already, and then seeing it snatched away by the current. Back at camp, she tells Danny, "Good news, there are fish in the water. Bad news, the fish got away." Danny doesn't fault her. He knows Rachel's done all she can, but they both know, deep down, they still haven't really eaten. Danny's back still aches. Rachel's burden keeps growing. On paper, they look safe, but in reality, hunger and injury are slowly dragging them down. And just then, Jeff finally gets his chance. He and Kayla follow an animal trail and soon find fresh tracks. This is clearly a route animals use to reach the water. With enough patience, real prey might appear. Suddenly, a warthog shows up ahead. Jeff seizes the moment, looses an arrow. It passes through the warthog. The shot is lethal, and it sets Jeff on fire because this is more than an ordinary meal. It's the first animal to fall, and Jeff's clearest reply to those who doubted him. Not long ago, he was stuck at the bottom of the leaderboard, his bridge half done, his torch mocked, his trap yielding bottom tier points. But now, with one arrow dragging the Texas team out of slump. On the scoreboard, they're not on top. But in terms of food, Jeff's the first to bring real meat home. He slings the warthog over his shoulders and strides to camp. Fired up, he won't stop shouting. His shouts of triumph quickly reach the other teams. Some cheer, some envy, and some simmer in silence. Matt hears it, keeps his cool, but his reply still has that familiar sting. He says sometimes it's skill, sometimes it's luck. It sounds offhand, but it's a fine needle poking straight into Jeff's win because to Matt, maybe the shot was luck. In Jeff's eyes, it's pure skill. From this moment on, the duel between these two top hunters is no longer just about leaderboard scores, but about prey, about food. Who bends the wilderness first? The warthog is more than a meal, but new trouble because in Zulu land, humans aren't the only ones looking for meat. There are hyenas. The rangers warn them predators will be drawn by the smell of blood. Jeff and Kayla must process the carcass now. Skin it, break it down, rig a smoker, fence off a meat zone, no time to waste. They slice meat thin and hang it over smoke and fire to dry. Then use branches, thorns, and fencing to create a separate meat protection zone. This is not just cooking. It's a race to seize a meat fortress from the hyenas before night. Jeff knows if they handle this warthog right, it can feed them for days, maybe even longer. But if the hyenas get it, All of today's effort will turn into a dinner prepared for scavengers. After dark, the hyenas come. They probe in the shadows, edging closer, testing human limits. Jeff and Kayla yell, wave fire, making noise to push them back. But the hyenas don't back off. They're starving, and the scent of meat is in the air. This land was never ours. For now, we just cling to a shrinking ring of firelight. On day 6, Matt finally acts. He heads into the hunting zone alone and runs into rhinos first. That's no ordinary animal. It's like a tank with a horn, standing in the brush with a calf at its side. A mother rhino with a calf is double the danger. Matt won't go near her and can't risk startling her. He can crouch, keep downwind, and slip past the patch. That's this wilderness. You walk out with a bow to hunt, but what ends up blocking your path might be a giant you can't afford to mess with. Meanwhile, the Mexico team completes their bridge. They've been at the bottom of the leaderboard, with strain on their faces. To Fernanda and Pablo, this bridge isn't another task. It's a first step rising above the red line. 他们不想被人小看，更不想当最先被淘汰的人. So they start playing more proactively, bolder, and more aggressive. After completing the bridge, they earn 100 points and unlock survival gear. But to truly escape danger, they still have to prove themselves in the next challenge. While Mexico is clawing back points, Frank delivers a highlight moment for the US South team. He heads out hunting alone until doesn't expect much at first, but before long, Frank actually manages to shoot a warthog. In an instant, the whole situation shifts again. After Jeff, then comes the season's second big kill. When Frank brings the news back, Took can hardly believe it. That quiet guy up front, always a step slow and saying little, has just dropped a full mountain of meat. And the two of them lug the warthog back to camp. It's brutally heavy, but the heavier the better, because each extra pound of meat means more strength and recovery, and more confidence for what's coming next. The US South team first clawed back points in the challenges, and they're making up the food deficit through hunting. This team never looked like the brightest contender at the start. Is looking like a contender, and on Matt's side, he gets a shot. After hitting a warthog, he follows the blood trail into brush. The warthog doesn't drop. It melts into shadows, hurt but ready to fight. This is when it's most lethal, because a cornered warthog stops being prey. It's a charging blade. Its tusks are sharp, able to slice a thigh artery. And if it connects, a hunter could bleed out and collapse in minutes. Matt has to move in close, but he can't rush it. In the end, he lands the finishing shot and brings the hunt to a close. Matt finally has a big game animal of his own. He thanks the animal for its sacrifice. In that moment, Matt is still the same Matt. Calm, professional, powerful. But there's a competitive spark he can't hide. Jeff already has one on the board, and he must answer. Soon, Matt and Gabby carry the warthog past the Texas camp. Outwardly, it's a walk by, but the air is tense. Matt says congrats, while nudging Jeff to close the points gap. It sounds like a joke, but every word has thorns. Jeff hears it clearly. In his eyes, Matt isn't just showing off his kill. He's twisting the knife as he walks past Jeff's camp with the animal on his shoulders. This is the most delicate part of a clash between strong contenders. They won't blow up. They don't take open shots. Yet every word becomes silent contest over who is the better hunter, who truly rules this wilderness. No verdict yet, but each already treats the other like a mountain they have to conquer. Meanwhile, fissures are starting to show in Danny and Rachel's partnership. With Danny held back by his injured waist, Rachel's been doing most of the foraging. But when they head out together to find a fishing spot, Rachel releases her frustration. She thinks her ideas are brushed aside, that though she has judgment and ability, she's always waiting for Danny to give orders. Danny isn't holding her back on purpose, but her experience and ingrained habits are strong, that she takes charge. Rachel, meanwhile, feels pushed to the sidelines. She's not out to one-up Danny. She just wants to stand beside him as an equal. It's more telling than any shouting match, because the deepest rifts rarely come from enemies, but from "I thought this was for your own good." Meanwhile, the teams that brought down meat finally get a long-awaited dinner. Team Texas eats warthog. The US South team sits by the fire, enjoying meat. Matt and Gabby have meat strips hanging, prepping jerky to stock up on energy for the coming days. As the smell of meat drifts through camp, the difference between teams is clear. Some are eating meat by the fire. Some still wait by the river for fish. Some have recovered strength, while some haven't had a chance to heal wounds and back pain. The cruelest thing about the wild isn't hunger, but that some are already full while others are still starving. Right as the teams finally catch their breath from the chaos of hunting day, a new task drops. All gather at the meeting point as production reveals the next challenge. Build a hanging double-layer bird trap. And the first step is to find 10 seeds in piles of rhino dung. Faces shift all at once. Before, they were bow drilling for fire, building bridges, torches, setting traps. Now the show is sending them into dung piles. However gross it gets, they can't quit. When this round ends, teams below the red line go into an elimination match. This isn't just a casual craft task. It's a life or death line that could send someone home tomorrow. As the challenge begins, they rush the rhino dung. Some tear into it at high speed. Some look crushed. Some complain yet still claw through it. The seeds turn out tinier than they thought, buried in grass, scraps, and dung. Like hunting for a needle in a haystack. Australia is still the first to dig up 10. They're so quick that in a blink, they're charging into the second stage. The US East, Pacific, Texas, and South teams follow in succession. Mexico and Brazil are under huge pressure, but they're not totally out of the running yet. The real test is the double-layer bird trap up next. The trap looks like 2 wooden baskets, but getting it stable is hard. Sticks should be straight, with many layers and narrow gaps. The ropes must be pulled tight, and the structure must hang, trigger, and reset. If a single knot is loose or one angle goes wrong, the whole trap just crumbles like loose firewood. This time Jeff is fast. He and Kayla quickly finish the first trap and even starts yelling at the Australian team. That's exactly Jeff's issue. He always likes to project his momentum before he's actually won. It's very Jeff and risky because in this challenge, leading halfway doesn't count. It only really counts once the judges approve it at the end. Hearing Jeff yell, Matt feels the heat too. There's no way he's letting Jeff beat him. He and Gabby drive their trap forward at full speed, nearly snatching first place. But at the critical moment, a knot comes loose. That tiny mistake forces them to take it apart and redo it. Matt's face shifted. He knew what that slip meant in this challenge. A loose knot doesn't just waste minutes. It can cost first place or control of the competition. The US South team was charging ahead, and they were just about to finish when they suddenly noticed one seed was missing. All 10 seeds are mandatory. One short and you're out. Bill sprints to the dung pile to look. It sounds like a minor slip-up, but in a race against the clock like this, one extra run can give away first place. The Pacific team seized the chance and closed the gap. Despite past injuries and miscommunication, Danny and Rachel were clicking in sync. From building the trap to setting and resetting it, they powered through each step. They took second place with 70 points. It meant everything to them, not just on the scoreboard, but in their mindset. Rachel wasn't trailing behind Danny. In this challenge, she proved she could drive the team forward too. For the US South team, despite the delay from a missing seed, they clawed back with steady execution and took first place. 2 straight wins, and this previously low-key team finally stepped into the spotlight. They don't rely on yelling or showing off or basking in reputation. They bank on steady execution, on tiny details that rarely go wrong. Brazil also staged a second-half comeback. They've been stuck by the red line all along, but this time they finally grabbed their shot and took third place. That score wasn't just a lifesaver. It pulled them out of the elimination zone. Matt and Gabby, after a string of mistakes, ended up only in 4th. It's not a disaster for them, but for Matt, it's definitely uncomfortable. He's used to leading and calling the shots, but this time the US South blew past him. Then the Pacific and Brazil slipped past him. Definitely not the standings Matt wants. Australia ended up at the back of the pack in 5th, and the whole thing was tense, but at least they didn't fall into the elimination zone. The remaining Texas and Mexico teams weren't so lucky. Jeff started out fast, but later their trap kept having problems. The structure and trigger were unstable, and they had to rebuild again and again. The guy who started out all swagger ended up in the most humiliating spot. Mexico came up short, so both teams left with 0 points by the end. Jeff's face was already dark. This isn't his first time hitting rock bottom, but the price is clear. Tomorrow, Texas and Mexico go head-to-head in elimination. When the updated rankings were released, the landscape flipped. After 2 wins, the US South rocketed into first place, and this once overlooked team suddenly turned into the real frontrunner. Matt's team slipped to second, still a powerhouse, but no longer the lone peak. Brazil's third place lifts them past the red line. The Pacific team is safe, and Australia stays. Texas and Mexico are on the brink. Jeff refuses to be first sent home. He's wild, he's loud, he lives for victory, and people like that are the last to accept being sent home first. He knows he's been pushed into a corner, but as Jeff himself put it, you don't drive a dangerous animal into a dead end, because once it has no way out, that's when it's fiercest. On the other side, pressure on Team Mexico is as heavy. 他们不再只为自己而战，身后站着整个国家, their families, and that pride that refuses to be laughed at. To be knocked out in the very first elimination. 那是他们咽不下去的。到第3季，真正的淘汰战终于落地了。All the arguments, hunts, mistakes, and comebacks have pushed the teams toward the red line. The red line is tightening. Texas versus Mexico. On one side, a survivalist. On the other, a national team. Tomorrow, only one will remain. Like and subscribe to catch the latest season of this wilderness survival.